All right, we are live. Welcome to Jason Hebert Live, guys. We do have another missing persons interview for you tonight. If you are a fan of anything true crime related, please click subscribe and hit the notification bell. Set it to all below to be notified anytime we do any of these interviews or any other true crime stories. Tonight, we are focusing on the disappearance of Holly Clark. I will bring up her pictures. Give me just a moment here. Hi to everybody in the chat. We've got a lot of people saying hello, both to me and to you guys. And I will introduce our guest in just a moment. One second. Tonight we have Holly's father, as well as Elle Mcfearsin, who I guess we could say heads the group or is part of the search. Is that the best way to describe your involvement?
She's been absolutely instrumental in helping us look for Holly, and she's such a good person for doing it. And she doesn't take compliments very well.
I do not take compliments well.
Which is why I'm giving them.
He's laying it on thick is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you are extremely appreciated, Elle, so I'm sure. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure you guys can see. Okay, every broadcast I forget to show my screen when I'm going through the pictures. So I just want to make sure everyone can see. These are some pictures of Holly, guys. And she went missing just earlier this year. We'll go over the details of the case in just a moment. Let's go through a few more pictures. Hello to everybody in the chat. Do appreciate your participation. As we go through, if there are any questions that you have, as always, please enter them in the chat. But let's kind of go over the details of Holly's case, the basics, and then we will let Dave and Elle give you more specifics. At 4:18 p.m. on January 11th, 2020, CCTV footage captured Holly Clark exiting her home wearing black boots, black jeans, and a black long-sleeve t-shirt with a belted pouch clipped around her waist. She would never be seen or heard from again. Her family flooded the area with missing posters. Then, a week later, they realized they had received a voicemail from Holly on the day before she went missing. That was very concerning. The contents of that voicemail will be played tonight on this broadcast and include Holly pleading for a plane ticket home. Holly had first moved to Toronto and then Hamilton, Ontario from her hometown Calgary in pursuit of a music career that had seen at least a couple of bands and groups she had formed with other musicians fall through, and eventually led to her pursuing a solo career, including posting songs to her YouTube account. Additional CCTV footage later surfaced around 3 weeks later on around January 26th that was eventually confirmed to be Holly, which showed her walking down a road near Wentworth and Shaw Street on the day she went missing at approximately 4:58 p.m., wearing a garbage bag as a makeshift poncho in the rain. Hamilton police are currently not treating Holly's disappearance as a crime, though they have stated she left the home that day in a, quote, state of crisis. Debate in the community following Holly's case has centered around whether she may have been suffering either a manic episode, psychosis, or some other kind of mental condition, or if she was indeed being followed and threatened. Her father believes everything about her disappearance is consistent with her being scared and running from something. And if Holly was scared, it likely would have been for a good reason, as she was an athlete. At 6 foot, 200 pounds, she was a 3-time wrestling champion that could more than handle herself. On January 20th, CHCH reported there were 3 sightings of Holly at Budget Hotel in East Hamilton. Police investigated the tips, but did not search the hotel as they were unable to obtain the 48 warrants needed. Much later that day, at around midnight, another tip came in regarding the same motel. This time, it was sent directly to the missing woman's friends and family. The tipster claimed they saw Holly, quote, drugged out of her mind, dragged along by another man. The hotel was eventually searched, and no sign of Holly was found. Despite all of this, no sign of Holly Clark has been found since she left her home that day on January 11th. Her family is desperate for answers and hopes someone watching tonight may know something, anything, and will come forward with information. So if you do, we beg you to do so. Tonight we have Dave, Holly's father, as well as Elle Mcfearsin, who is friends with Holly's family and helps head her group and search efforts, on with us to tell Holly's story. Dave and Elle, I first just want to say I'm so sorry for what you guys are going through, and you have the support of me and my team, as well as all my subscribers.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I couldn't imagine. So I pray that this brings you guys some answers. And do you want to start by maybe telling us a little bit about Holly and then lead into what we do know in the days and weeks before her disappearance?
Oh, she was a really open, honest, intelligent person with a great sense of humor. She used to do stand-up comedy, actually. She never saw. Did you? You never saw that? No.
No.
She's quite funny. Anyway, she's extremely imaginative and creative when it came to her songs. I'm actually a pretty hypercritical person when it comes to art, and when my kids are involved in something, I kind of have always been very reluctant to. Well, I have tended to approach their things with a sense of anxiety, because you're always faced, like, anytime your friend does something, you have to go and figure out a way of saying, "Oh, that was interesting" or "wonderful,"
Great.
without ever using the word "interesting," and trying to be positive, in the view. But her stuff was, I found, shockingly good and amazingly innovative and creative, and all her songs were different. So, I prepared myself, but I never had to do any of that stuff that you do when you lie to your friends about.
We'll add a little bit more. Holly was born in Newfoundland.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a brother and a sister, Kate and Caleb. Mom and dad are Dave and Greta. Greta's kicking around here somewhere. She just tends to stay a little bit out of the spotlight. When did you move to Calgary?
We moved in 1995.
So quite young for the kids.
Yeah.
Holly grew up here in Bowness. So if you're from Calgary, that's where we're live from today, is Bowness. Holly went to school, ended up at University of Calgary. She got her degree in poli-sci, and actually was on the Dinos wrestling team and won how many championships?
She didn't make the team one year because the Olympic champion was ahead of her in her weight class, and then she placed second, and she placed first 3 times nationally for the. That's in the collegiate division, and she won open championships nationally 4 or 5 times, and she won the Pan American Games once.
And at the same time, Dave had given her an electric guitar to kind of mess around with,
Mm-hmm.
and that led to an intense passion for music. She is a prolific writer, be it journaling or lyrics or songs. She's, I don't know, 80, 100 songs within a couple of years.
It's a shockingly large number.
Yeah.
And I do apologize, guys, because I was getting a lot of stuff in the chat about feedback when I talk, especially. Do you have the YouTube link loaded too? Is it possible they're hearing that come through?
No.
Okay. Huh. All right. Sorry, guys. We'll try to address it, but I don't know what it would be then. Okay, continue. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure they could hear.
No, it's all good. I mean, it could be us. We're not the most tech savvy people. So she picked up the electric guitar, ended up doing amazingly well. Met a boy, moved to Toronto with a boy. She decided that was where she needed to be if she was going to further her music career.
Be there to keep him happy, basically.
Yeah, but she did believe that Toronto was the next place for her from a musical perspective. So they moved out there. Her and the boy eventually split up. That was last summer. She then developed a bit of infatuation with another boy. Moved out to Hamilton to spend time with this guy. And unfortunately, those feelings were not reciprocated. So she did move from Toronto to Hamilton in November, found a place, really liked the place that she was in, and then disappeared January 11th. So just about 2 months after being in Hamilton, she was gone.
Wow. Okay. We do have a question from the chat. I was wondering if the family would consider using the image of what she was last seen in on the missing person posters.
I wouldn't mind that, except that she wouldn't really be seen wearing a garbage bag unless it was raining cats and dogs.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it doesn't really show her face very well.
Yeah.
It is a really good video to watch if you are interested in helping to identify her, as a person that you see, because it shows what her gait is like, but it doesn't show her face all that well. It shows it well enough that we can be 100% confident that it's her, but it's not a great image of her. I don't care about how it makes her look. It's just, it doesn't really help people now know what she would look like today. It's so by all means look at it, but it's not what's going to help you identify her if you see her face in public.
Okay. And we do have Linda Richardson saying she's in Calgary, Alberta, and offering her help if you need anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I know her on Facebook, so if you need to get in touch with her, I can introduce you guys, if you don't know already.
We are seeing these questions. Would you like us to respond to them?
Well, I'm kind of reading them as they pop up. But if you want to respond to them, you can do that. Whatever is easy for you guys.
No, we'll let you lead it. We'll let you lead it.
Okay. So Gracie Witham asks, is it safe to assume that the footage shown from February that you believed was Holly was one of the doppelgangers called into the tip lines recently, like the tip about Niagara Falls or the recent?
Not at all.
No. So let's make that abundantly clear as well. So the footage that we have shown publicly has been from January 11th, but there was also a sighting from February 3rd in the same area that Holly went missing in. So we had received a Facebook message saying, hey, do you know Holly? Is this Holly? And here's some footage. So what had happened was there was a woman standing out front of her house, and she saw a girl walk past her house that she'd never seen before.
Oh.
And
the girl was about 10 feet away from her, and she thought that girl was Holly.
She thought it was her.
And then she asked her neighbor to look for video. Her neighbor found the video. They sent the video to us. We were sitting down at breakfast and got this notice, and we were completely skeptical because every video up to that point, everything had been not Holly. Yeah. And we still cannot say that was not Holly. In fact, at the time, I was about 99% certain that it was Holly. It's only just sort of the drift of time with nothing else following that has led us to believe that it might not have been Holly, but we also have not found out who it was. Yeah.
So the girl walks down the street. She's got the same walk as Holly. She's got the same kind of body features as Holly. She's got a bag over her shoulder, same length of hair at the time. For us to see footage and see Holly, she has a very, very distinct walk.
We have been shown video so many times, and it has been the case 99% of the time that we can instantly say, that's not Holly. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the effort that you went to get us this, but it's not Holly. And then we have to, we just move on. But this one left us convinced that it was Holly, but then we just didn't find anything further from it.
Yeah.
We found a little bit more videotape showing us her path, but then she disappears again, and we didn't find her. And so, no, we can't assume that wasn't Holly.
And my understanding is you have very thorough or complete, let's say, access to her computers, her phones. So you have been able to trace her last steps and what she may have been thinking and things like that, right? Do you want to go into that a little, what you have? Because people tend to ask, have you looked at her Facebook? Have you looked at her? So just kind of jumping on that beforehand.
So I would say that we are unfortunately lucky in that regard. I don't think a lot of missing persons cases have this as a part of it. But Holly was incredibly frugal, so she did not use a personal laptop or a personal phone. She used a work one. And we were able to essentially go through everything she had done, every Google search, every step she took, every ping, every email, every YouTube video she watched. We were able to go literally up to the minutes before she disappeared. When she did disappear, she didn't take her phone or her laptop with her.
Am I correct in thinking that the one piece of information that we lost was all of the content of her texts?
Yeah.
And we lost all that because that was necessary to break into
To break into the phone.
break into the other accounts. So
yeah,
we did lose part of it, and we weren't able to recover it.
Yeah. We were able to recover the phone numbers that she texted,
Right, but
none of them were out of line.
No,
but not the contents.
We don't know what she texted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Jake Knauer asks, was Holly being followed that you're aware of? And of course the answer is no, correct?
We don't really know. We don't know, but she believed she was. She definitely believed she was. One of the things that makes us believe it's more likely that she actually did have a mental illness of some kind is that she believed, at least as early as the Tuesday, that she was being followed and that somebody did want to actually kill her.
Mm-hmm.
She believed that as early as Tuesday. She didn't tell us until, was it Friday morning? Friday morning.
Friday morning. Yeah.
She didn't tell us until Friday morning. And that's not a sign in itself. It's just that the other behavior sort of around that is kind of odd. There may be actual reasons for it, even if she was legitimately afraid for her life. But we don't know what those are, and it makes it easier to imagine that, for me to imagine, that she actually was suffering a mental illness. But I don't know that. I don't know that she was suffering a mental illness. She could have had legitimate reasons for not reaching out to seek help, even knowing that somebody was trying to kill her.
Yeah, that was new information.
That was new information when we went back to Hamilton.
Yeah, we went back to Hamilton, May and June to carry on with the search. We left Hamilton in March. COVID hit. Dave and I drove back to Calgary and plastered posters all along the drive. So we hit 106 locations on the drive back to Calgary between police and food services, shelters. So we plastered everywhere that we went, got back to Calgary, and then COVID hit. So unfortunately, we were stuck here and were unable to get back prior to May. We did get back in May, and we ended up getting a lot more information from roommates and people that had seen her. And one of the people that had seen her on the Tuesday prior had said that she told him that people were out to kill her. And I asked him, well, what did you say to that? Because I mean, for me, I'd be like, well, hey, girl.
Is this the one in the woods you're talking about, or is this a different one? I'm sorry.
No, this is a different one.
Oh.
Now that person had heard the story about running through the woods, so they thought somehow we knew.
Yeah.
But
this
didn't. Was totally new information. We heard that on Friday morning. Mm-hmm. This person heard it on Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
So it's quite different when something has been going on since Tuesday.
Yeah.
Than if somebody went running through the woods on Thursday night and then called us on Friday morning. It might have just happened, but if they're sitting around on that information for several days, it's a very different story.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to interpret that as maybe the product of a mental illness, but I don't know that for sure. We can't absolutely say that for sure.
And I would also add the people who live in Hamilton know this, I think, better than anyone. That is a major trafficking corridor from the US up through the GTA. So initially when this was told to Dave and Greta that there were two men chasing her, it sounded preposterous. But
yeah,
the reality
preposterous
is
from here.
Yeah.
But when we got to Hamilton and people were talking about how frequently people were groomed for prostitution typically, and how it was typically done with two men. It was a very striking piece of information to have been given.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't rule out that something nefarious didn't actually happen, and that Holly didn't have other good reasons for not telling us.
Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned grooming. So what's your take on what happened at the hotel? Do you want to go into why things weren't searched and what they found or didn't find?
Okay, there's a couple of reasons why it wasn't searched. One is it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to go to a judge and say, we need 48 or however many it was search warrants tonight to find this girl. The police had already made up their mind that there wasn't any foul play. They said that, but at the same time, they were willing to entertain the possibility that Holly was obtaining money for prostitution, that she was addicted to drugs. There was all kinds of things that they were willing to assume, but they wanted to be able to say, we have no evidence of foul play. So it's a lot of work. They didn't want to do the work. That's one thing.
So let's go back. So I'm going to assume that a lot of you don't know the whole story about Holly, so I'll give you a bit of a Coles Notes version. I do see that a few people have posted in the comments that there is a Facebook group. Dave and I have spent an extensive amount of time doing Facebook Lives discussing all of this. So if you are interested, feel free to go back and spend a good amount of time listening to us talk. What had happened was there were 3 tips that came in that said Holly had been drugged and dragged up to the 2nd floor of the Budget Inn in Hamilton. So
these were subsequent to 2 or 3 tips that had come in the prior 2 days.
Yeah, exactly.
This was my 3rd trip to the Budget Inn to look at video footage that might have been Holly.
Yeah. So the management were good at the beginning. They allowed Greta and 2 other people to come in and look at footage of their cameras in the building. And then somebody came in and said, I need the room for a little bit. I need you to leave. And when they did that and they were let back in, there was some footage missing. There was about an hour of footage missing from where they had left off to where the camera was sitting at. So it had been deleted. And that escalated everything. Because they had been writing down the times and the timestamps that they were watching, and it was no longer there. So the police were called. The group was asked to leave the premises by management. At 2:00 in the morning, police were still trying to keep Dave out. Somebody pulled the fire alarm to try and get all of the people out of the building in hopes that Holly was in there and that they might be forced to bring her out. And it was shortly after that that the police said, we're going to go look. But when they did go look, all they did was knock on the door. They didn't actually physically go in and search.
And there were many rooms where the doors were not open.
Yeah, nobody answered them, which at 2:00 in the morning is absolutely...
That accomplishes nothing, basically. You might as well have not done anything.
Exactly. There were at least a dozen rooms that weren't even, where the doors weren't even open. I'm basing this on the fact that I saw 3 rooms not opened on the wing that I was on. I was watching the police do their work and in another wing, somebody reported the same thing. So I don't really. Just one second. The train is going by.
I apologize. Like I said, we're in Bowness, Calgary, and there's a train track just down the road. So every now and then we get a bit of train. So we're just going to close the doors and get back to you. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So the result, and in addition to this, when we first went, we were of the belief that the manager of the hotel was in fact being helpful. And then with Greta sitting there for, I think, 7 hours looking at video. I don't remember, it was 5 or 7 hours. It's a long time looking at video. She actually witnessed him taking his cut for prostitution. He was taking $20 for a 15-minute session for people wanting to visit a room. Yeah. So she witnessed that numerous times. And then we understood that he was actually part of the whole human trafficking thing that was going on there. And that he wasn't really he wasn't as good of a guy as he had made us believe.
Yeah.
Wow.
And sorry, the computer was plugged into an extension cord which wasn't plugged in, so rectify that matter. Anyway, yeah. So during the initial stages of us looking, we thought we had been assured by him that nobody could go out the side doors because there were alarms on them. And when the police come to this building, they roll out. It's a V-shaped building, 2 wings at right angles, and the police come up to the
middle. There you go.
To the middle, and they don't actually like cover the doors. I don't know if this is because the police believed that Sammy was a great guy, as everybody else seemed to, or what. But in any case, the doors were not covered for a long time, at least 2 hours. There was at least a 2-hour period when Holly could have been there and just been removed through the side doors. And we believed that this couldn't happen because there were alarms on those doors. But there was just a switch under the desk that Sammy could turn off or on. And we found out later in the evening, when I kicked open one of the doors and nothing happened, that Sammy had that alarm off. So Holly could have been there, and she could have been moved, taken away that night.
Well, and we were told by a madam who was working out of there that Holly had left when the fire alarm was pulled. That they had taken her.
But again, there's all kinds of people with all kinds of reasons for saying things, and what the madam said is definitely a lie, because we at that point were covering the doors.
Yeah. Okay.
So because we had already learned that Sammy wasn't what he said he was, and that he was, and that the alarms were off. So at that point, we were watching the doors, so we know for sure what she said wasn't true, but Holly could have been removed earlier. Yeah.
Okay.
And we also learned, just one other thing, we also learned that there were at least 2 sort of drug dealing, perhaps prostitution gangs in the city, and that they were using us to distract the police. So one gang seemed to be sending us to the Budget Inn, and I think probably the Budget Inn gang seemed to be sending us to another part of town and so each group was using us to hassle the other group. We have no idea if Holly was involved at all, except that I'm sure that some of the people were not members of those gangs, because, for instance, one of the people who called in a tip went out of his way to stay around at significant risk to himself, to stay around to say, look, I saw her. I'm the one who called you. I saw her. I'm a heroin addict. I'm here scoring my heroin. My girlfriend and I here saw her. We waited to see you, but we don't really want to be involved with the police who are right over there. So the people who called us to go to the budget at least very strongly believed that it was Holly. But there have been a lot of people who strongly believed that they saw Holly and it was actually somebody else. So that could have been the case all along here. And that's what I believe I still believe that's likely the case, but we cannot rule out that she was not there, that she was not found, because we know the rooms were not searched thoroughly. And we know that people really genuinely believe that they've seen her being dragged around, drugged there.
It's surprising to me that there's so many mistaken identities, because she's big in the sense of height, very tall. She's an athlete, so it's not, she's very recognizable is what I'm trying to say. So that's surprising.
You would think so. You would think so. But on our last time in Hamilton, we had some number of very credible tips that took us down toward Niagara and St. Catharines. And when we were in St. Catharines, we had 13 different people assert that they had seen Holly yesterday there. And we did a stakeout, and we waited, and we found the girl that they thought was Holly. And I guess if you're 5'2", 5'8" or 9, looks very tall.
Yeah, true. I'm 6'5", so I know.
Yeah. So anyway, it was that was a really crushing disappointment, because we really thought we were going to find Holly there, and it was there were 13 different people who said that they'd seen her just the day before.
That morning.
So eyewitness, we really, really appreciate all the people who think that they see her and call it in, because somebody who does that, might well find her. But it's really hard to take a picture that you've seen and say, yeah, that's the person. Mm-hmm. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Open the door again. The train's going by.
I think I saw.
Yeah, I'm just going to grab, because there was a few. Sorry. What happened? Dana Houston asked, what happened with the roommate who owned the building Holly walked past and wouldn't show you guys the footage? I find it odd that the roommate wouldn't offer that right away when asked.
Yeah. So what Dana's referring to is the landlord of the house that Holly lived in. The home had a number of cameras on it, on the outside and the inside of the home. These cameras were on the common areas of the home. There were 7 roommates, including Holly. And when Holly went missing, the landlord refused to provide footage. He did provide 4 still shots about 2.5 weeks later. Mm-hmm. But
it took a long time. Yeah.
He flat out refused to provide any actual footage of anything. The day that she left, the hours leading up, even the moments leading to her disappearing. He was incredibly obstructive with the police service, and really was not super helpful with us in any way, shape, or form. The
only reason that this didn't all make him insanely suspect was that he was in Australia
at the time.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we had realized when we got into her apartment is that there was also a landline there. And that landline was owned by the landlord, and it unfortunately took public shaming for him to produce those records to the family. So we did get those 6 months later.
We got whatever he sent us.
Yeah.
Again, it's a case of we can't rule out anything based on that. Really, he sent us some copied and pasted stuff. I don't want to get anybody hassling him again.
Nope.
But again, it's kind of like the same scenario as the budget in. Mm-hmm. We got whatever he voluntarily gave us.
Yeah.
So who's to know how many phone calls
were deleted?
We don't know. We have no idea. But we're taking it on faith that he did the best he can.
Yeah.
He could.
Okay.
But we know for certain that he didn't do the best he could before. So it's kind of a
catch-22.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation.
Hmm. Okay. So Shady asks, I don't know if anyone has asked this prior. Was she known for ever going MIA for a long while like this prior to this time? And did she hitch rides or was known to hitchhike?
Never. She went tree planting with her boyfriend, and she didn't bring a phone along. So
that's what's weird to me. People never leave their phone, you know?
Yeah, she didn't bring her phone along. She didn't have a phone with her, so Randy had the phone. It was really odd not to be able to contact her for 3 or 4 days at a time. It was odd and frustrating and very unusual not to be able to contact her for 3 or 4 days at a time the summer before, and that didn't happen after that or before that. So yeah, this was not normal, and it had never really happened before.
And the other half of that question was, is she known to hitchhike? And that's a
never that we know of. Yeah.
Okay. Now you mentioned, this is obviously a very personal thing, so I don't want to give it any specifics, but something about a diary or a journal. Did you want to go into any of the specifics on that, or?
So we've made the choice to keep her journal private. That journal, I don't think, was ever meant to be read by anybody but her. Right. It has a lot of personal information, personal thoughts, things that, I mean, you wouldn't want me reading your diary, you know?
No.
But what we can say is she is as prolific of a journal writer as she is a songwriter. So we have got
just too much to go through, and
tons.
And the thing is, like, there's a lot of darkness in her journals, but it's kind of like, I think it's just because she wrote in her journals when she was feeling down.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I read something in her journal and I thought, oh, is this why she was leaving? Oh my God. And then I checked the journal and it was written like 3 years prior.
Yeah.
And in all of that time, there was nothing in her behavior to indicate, you know, that she might do this.
Yeah.
That she might go off by herself. And so, you know, I haven't been able to find anything in her journals that I would interpret as the reason why she's gone.
Whether the reason or a goodbye. We didn't find any goodbyes.
There is a goodbye that's said, but it's in that phone call. Yeah. That's potentially a goodbye. It's in that phone message.
That voicemail.
It's very, very, very heart-wrenching. It sounds like this might be goodbye. I'm going into danger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I might not make it. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't think that we know based on that whether she really was in danger, but that's the way she was feeling. Mm-hmm.
Okay, speaking of, why don't we play that for the listeners? You said you did want to do that, right? I want to make sure it's something you're okay.
I'm going to do that, yeah.
So do you want to hang on just a second? Dave's just going to leave and go get some more drinks. This voicemail is one of the hardest parts of this.
Okay, so my understanding is he wants it played. There's no pressure. Yes. He doesn't want to.
Play it. Okay. I think that people need to hear this. He's just going to take off and go get me another drink. So.
Now, do we want to play it while he's gone, or do we want to wait till he's?
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Okay. Let me grab my phone. Give me 1 second.
You bet. So while Jason's gone, hi everyone. I can see your comments and your questions. So thank you so much for taking an interest. I really do appreciate it. And feel free to. I'm sure Jason has said this before, but ask anything you want to know. We are incredibly open about this entire situation because someone somewhere knows something. So thank you for tuning in this evening to Holly's story.
Hey guys, just a moment. I'm pulling it up here. 2 minutes and 12 seconds, so we'll play the duration. Is it muted? Give me 1 second. Yeah. Come on. Why won't it let me unmute it?
If you can't get it, I can try and pull it up from here too. If that's
Okay. It's playing. It's just muted, and it won't let me unmute for some reason.
okay.
So sorry, guys.
I think you mentioned you're as technologically illiterate as I am, so
Yeah. It's so weird. But I mean, even I can even handle this. It's right there, the little mute thing, and it won't. Just won't. I hit it, and nothing.
No worries. How about I get you? How's that sound?
That'd be perfect. Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Hi, Greta. How are you, first of all? I'm not doing so great out here, and I could really use Dave's help. I would really like you guys to get me home. Could you, is there any chance you could buy me a ticket home, Greta? I would really like a plane ticket out of Hamilton. I would really, really, really like a plane ticket out of Hamilton to Calgary, please. And I would like to come home and visit you and Dave. I'm missing you so much. And I love you so much. So that's all I want in the world is to see you and Dave. Because I love you both so, 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 so much. So, if you could please, help me out with a plane ticket, that would be really, really greatly appreciated. Okay, I love you. And I look forward to hearing from you. Okay, bye.
And I'm so sorry, Dave. I know that's tough to listen to. But I want to be clear on something for the chat, and I actually haven't even spoken to you guys about this. So I'm guessing it was a thing that she called you guys by your names versus mom and dad.
Yeah, well, that's from my family. I grew up doing that with my parents. And
Okay, just so people know that was to her parents, that voicemail.
Yeah, you'll never hear all three of the kids refer to Dave and Greta as Dave and Greta. You'll very rarely hear them say mom and dad. Super rare.
Okay. Okay. No, people do that. I just want to make sure that.
They say it joking. Holly would call me and say, "Father."
You're in her phone as father.
Yeah. She would harass me by calling me father.
Father. Dave Wilson asks, have you guys checked halfway houses, shelters, food kitchens, and so forth?
I don't know if we've checked halfway houses. We've checked a lot of places, but there are a lot of different sort of services that are available, and we haven't.
We have hit every single
everything
shelter,
in Hamilton,
food service.
Yeah.
Halfway houses, no, because you require identification if you're in a halfway house. So if she was there, that would have been information that Hamilton police would have, and they would have come back and said, "We know where she is. She's fine."
We checked everything from Toronto to
the border,
Niagara, and a bunch of the places that are further north, like Cambridge and Waterloo and London. And
Brantford, St. Catharines.
Yeah. So we checked all kinds of places, but there are always more places that we didn't check. We didn't go out to Oshawa. We didn't go down to Windsor. Other people did check some of those places for us. But we did find that there was a big difference between making a phone call and showing up in person and standing there and holding the picture. And, if you do that for a little while, people take a little bit more time and do tend to look into things a little bit more closely for you.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of that, but we didn't there's always places that we didn't check.
Yeah. And again, let's be fair. If we check, not saying we would, but if we checked an abandoned building at 2:00 today, she could show up. She could show up today at 4, and we would have no idea, and we'd cross that off our list thinking, okay, this is done. But the reality is, it's so easy to move between cities and abandoned buildings and escarpments and tent cities that even though we've checked it, doesn't necessarily mean that she didn't show up there at some point.
Absolutely. Okay. Tina Kyle asks, is there any question if the landlord has anything to do with the sex trafficking people? Has anyone else from where she lived gone missing?
We don't have any evidence that ties him to them. Apart from one of his friends, one of the landlord's actual friends, somebody who played music with him, who said that he had a bunch of party houses in Toronto. But I don't think Michael is well enough off to own anything else.
Multiples, yeah.
He may have had places where he partied in Toronto, as it's said,
but we have no evidence to say that he's involved.
We have one sort of piece of hearsay that, but no.
Okay. Let me see. Just kind of going through the chat. Sorry. Edie Whitley asked if the police are helping.
Well, the police are helping.
Yeah.
They weren't particularly helpful on the night of the budget and debacle, but they have been very helpful mostly.
They've been
they're quite reluctant to do what needs to be done if this were a case, if this were definitely a case of foul play. They don't want to collect evidence at that level. So I'm a little bit choked about that because there have been tips that we were given that involved people saying that foul play had occurred, and then evidence wasn't collected, and in fact later it was bulldozed. So I'm a little choked about some things sometimes, but mostly they have been very helpful, and we really appreciate that.
What do you mean by bulldozed?
Literally bulldozed. There was a homeless man who was people had asserted had taken Holly in on 2 nights and given her drugs, and he was brought in and questioned, but his place of residence was not searched. And then the police were moving people out of public areas because because of the whole COVID response. And I don't know if they were involved in the bulldozing of the encampments in this particular field, but the encampments in this particular field were bulldozed as a result of their efforts to close down homeless encampments for the reason for COVID reasons. Okay. So they literally did not collect evidence, and then it was bulldozed. And I don't know if they were part of that or knew anything about it, but they didn't collect the evidence in any case. And I am a little choked.
Okay. So
that being said, we do appreciate what they do. They do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. They jump every time we call, which is
they really believe that there's no foul play here.
Yeah. And
so they're acting on that basis. We have to take it on faith that that's true.
Yeah. You see this picture? Did you see that one? It was one you sent me. Can you go back to that photo? Okay. Can you go back to that photo of Dave and Holly?
That one?
Yeah. This is 100% this family. Just happy, goofy grins. Like, I know 99.9% of you watching this don't know Holly. She is a bubbly, amazing, amazing person. This photo is 100% her. So I love this one. This one's great.
Yeah, she's very cute, very pretty girl, by the way. Gorgeous. That's a picture of her. So I don't know how much detail you want to or can go in on this, but you had mentioned the specific quote that Holly was aware of a, quote, significant disturbance in her life. Do you want to go over what you know of that, or what you at least believe it to be?
Well, we know from a couple of emails, from an email and a text, I think. Is that correct? Yeah. That she was reaching out to other people about something that had happened. She wanted to talk to people about something that had happened or that she believed was happening. And in one of those, some of it had to do with the landlord and his cameras. She was concerned about those. She said literally that he had the cameras up, and he said that he had them up in the house because he was paranoid. Mm-hmm. And she said to this person in the text that she had never been that paranoid, so she didn't quite understand.
She was concerned from like an invasion of privacy standpoint?
She was concerned, she was quite concerned that she was being spied on. So it sounded quite paranoid to me. It's interesting. She said she had never been that paranoid while she was acting quite paranoid. Yeah. So, but then again, maybe she really had a legitimate reason to be concerned, and I don't know. And
his refusal to provide actual footage doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. It makes him seem much more suspicious. There's been so much that these people have done to sort of draw suspicion to themselves. The landlord and the woman who inserted herself into the case as his representative, as Holly's, as our representative to Holly. I don't know what she was doing, but anyway, it seemed to be all on her own volition that she did this, and everything she did made herself and Michael and her boyfriend, quite frankly, Avery, who's one of Holly's roommates, seem more suspicious. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's on purpose. It's just somebody's weirdness, I think.
Yeah, it could be one of those things. People act weird when crises or trauma hit them. Sometimes not what you expect.
Yeah.
We have a question from Dana Houston. Who else lived with Holly? It seemed like the other roommates helped out sometimes, then other times they didn't. At the beginning, I remember reading some of them commenting odd things. Are they suspects?
I'm quite suspicious of a number of them, but I don't know if it has any bearing in reality. There's a woman named Tina who was the girlfriend of one of the roommates who said some things that we found out that weren't true, that threw suspicion on all of them.
So let me give a little bit of background to what Dave's talking about. There are 7 roommates, including Holly. It is a rooming house. It's quite a large home, and it's basically paid by the month, and you get your room, and then there's common shared areas.
Except for Holly's, which was
an actual apartment up at the top.
On the top, yeah.
So all of the roommates, there are 2 of them that their English was not so great back in January. We did manage to meet up with them in June, and they gave us a bunch more information, which was great. One of the girls also gave us a ton more information. Again, thank you to her. That was really great to actually sit down and spend the afternoon with her. But there are certain things. So, for example, when Holly walked out the door at 4:18, she walked out with the black pants, the black shirt, black boots. But when it was called into 911,
then a few minutes later, they called it in. They called it in after she left.
So this one roommate's girlfriend, who doesn't actually live there, did call 911 about 3 minutes after she left. So it wasn't during the time she was home. And she said that Holly left with a baseball bat in her hand. So unfortunately, the initial information that went out led people to think that she was aggressive, not to approach, that she was a danger. But the reality is, when we got the still pictures, she did not leave with a baseball bat.
No, this one is a very loose relationship with the truth. she had represented that she had gone up to see Holly after Holly had broken the window to get into the house. She had gone up and she had arranged for a friend to stay with Holly, and that friend was one of the roommates, in fact, not a friend. But then we talked to the roommate, and she had done that of her own volition. She was the one who had seen Holly sitting in her room with a baseball bat, fearful of somebody coming for her.
Mm-hmm.
She had probably mentioned the baseball bat to Tina. Tina just confabulated this whole scenario where Holly went off with a baseball bat and told the police this.
Yeah.
And she never saw it herself, obviously, because it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then she told us later, when we were trying to get in contact with Emily ourselves so we could, get it from the horse's mouth. She told us, Emily's really fragile, and I sent her away because she doesn't need this kind of stress in her life. Well, that was complete bullshit. Emily left all by herself to go see her boyfriend because she had a plan to go see her boyfriend. She constructed this scenario that it made it seem like Emily was suspicious for sneaking off right after Holly went missing, and hiding out for a week, when in fact it was just Tina who was obstructing us from getting to Emily,
mm-hmm.
because she was inserting herself in the case in this weird way. So I don't know. And I don't think she even does it on purpose. It's really odd. She just kind of like constructs these things that she believes out of the air. She believes she's a really good person and she's taking care of the people in the house and whatnot. But then when they actually get a little inconvenient, God knows what she actually did. What she actually yelled at Holly that day, because we don't know, because Michael didn't give us the video. But then she calls it. She does whatever she does and calls it into the police.
As you can tell, we've had a fair amount of, whether it's on purpose or not, obstruction as we've gone along. Yeah. Which is incredibly frustrating. All we want is to find Holly.
Mm-hmm.
If Holly did choose to walk away from her life and peace out, that's fine. We need to hear that from her. We need to have that conversation with her.
Mm-hmm.
None of us believe that's the actual situation.
Mm-hmm.
But all of these little bits of obstruction, they don't help with trying to find her. So if anybody listening out there does have information, might have seen her, did talk to her, and you've not talked to me, please give me a call.
Mm-hmm.
We really would like to piece a few more things together, and without everybody else's help, that's just not possible.
And I spent a whole lot of time in June asking at so many doors, risking COVID at every one, asking if anybody had seen Holly walking on that night, on January the 11th, walking with a garbage bag. And I thought that was pretty distinctive. I thought it would be hard to miss. We only had one response that said, yes, they'd seen her. We had two, actually. Two responses, yeah. One was a woman driving in her car who saw Holly like about a minute after the last camera spotted her. And the other woman saw her walking up Burlington toward Toronto, but there was some discrepancies in her account later on that made it hard for us to be entirely sure that she had seen Holly. But if Holly did walk for an extended time, I'm thinking somebody did see her. Somebody would have seen her, probably walking along Burlington Street in a garbage bag.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's pretty distinctive or memorable.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to try to make sure we get all the questions that
there's
people
a
have.
lot. And
there's quite a bit.
Keep it coming, guys. Like we're happy to answer them.
And when we're done, I'll give, of course, Holly's page. If either Elle or Dave want their personal page, I'll link that as well. And then I think Elle said something about calling her. So I don't know if there's a number you give out. I always leave that up to you guys, but I will put that if you want that there as well.
Absolutely.
But a couple more questions. Jesus Lopez says, sorry to bug. It's a case that haunts me and saddens me. Her last known sighting on the tracks, what was ahead? Were there just no more cameras? Was the port searched?
The port is straight ahead. We called the Port Authority. They did say that they searched it. They did, and they told us, and they also searched their cameras and looked. But it's really, really hard to see things on the cameras. And we did a little experiment when we were there.
And why? Why was it so hard to see it on the cameras?
Well, the rain was actually moving almost sideways and was running down the lenses of the cameras. Yeah. And it was getting darker. It was almost dark, and there were very heavy clouds overhead. Yeah. The rain. I looked at cameras myself for hours of footage. If somebody had walked by, I couldn't have said. Yeah. There was perhaps a tiny little blob that we saw from one camera. Mm-hmm. That was moving east on Burlington. The account that we had that said that they'd seen her had her moving west on Burlington. And we there was no good footage. And in addition, by the time we got to this point in the search, it was about February 3rd, and that was about 3 weeks in. And almost everything gets overwritten after 3 weeks. We didn't get our first footage until 2 weeks in. We worked like demons.
Yeah. So her last confirmed steps were, if you were to pull up a map of Hamilton and type in Wentworth Recycling, you will find a company on the corner of Wentworth and Brant, and you will see some train tracks, and then the next major intersection is Burlington and Wentworth. Mm-hmm. So the last footage we have is from Wentworth Recycling. They've been amazing. They continue to look for Holly even after they provided us with footage, which is great. Thank you. The last bit of footage we have is her crossing the train tracks at that section there. So again, if you search Wentworth Recycling in Hamilton, you'll find the location on maps, and that's
the port is about 2 blocks from there.
Yeah. It's very, very close.
There are, if you guys have seen the movie or the TV series The Boys, that's on.
I'm a fan. I did. This channel used to do movie reviews. I did a review of that a lot of years ago.
There's a scene where the fish guy dives into the ocean. He's diving into, the person playing that part, or the stunt person, is diving into Lake Ontario, and they're diving off a ship that was parked at the port when Holly went missing.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you want to see the area, you can see it there on that show. Yeah. And
is that the place where he stops and the dolphin flies through the windshield? That's at the port, right?
That's probably in the same area. Yeah.
Good show. Okay. I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
No.
Okay. Edie Whitley asks, have you talked to her boyfriend or ex?
Yes. My son was looking for help on the day that Holly went missing. He got there a couple of hours after she went missing, and he shouted at the roommates or did whatever he did until they went out and helped look with him for Holly. And at the same time, he called Randy, her ex, who was in Toronto, and he came out on a bus and helped look.
He was with us for 2 months.
Yeah, he was with us for 2 months looking for Holly.
There's no, I know if you watch crime shows or most true crime things, the first person you look for is the boyfriend or the ex.
Yeah.
That's 100% not the situation in this case.
Okay. So you guys are pretty confident on that, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We have a lot of people very disturbed about the cameras in the home. A lot of debate on that in the chat.
Us too.
Us too.
Us too.
Yeah. Holly was disturbed about the cameras in the home.
Yeah.
So we were doing a Facebook Live thing, and the person that I was talking about before with the loose relationship to the truth, Tina, was.
I don't know if it's me, but you just got really low, Dave. You were sounding great.
The person,
There it is. Okay.
the person with the loose relationship with the truth, Tina, was typing in comments, and she suddenly typed in. She was adamant that Holly had a mental problem, and to prove this, she said, "Oh well, Holly, she even ripped down the cameras in the kitchen, you know." And then it struck me that the last thing Holly did before she left was to go down to what they had been calling the furnace room and to look for a bike, right? But if you ask the roommates, there had never been a bike in the furnace room. What was there was a video camera server. There was a server in that room. It was a server room as well as a furnace room. It was locked, and she was trying to break into it apparently just before she went. And we'd heard this story, and then we find out from Tina that Holly had ripped down cameras in the kitchen.
4 months later.
We find out 4 months after, because she blabs it in this Facebook Live chat that we're having in the comments, and you know, it wasn't even true.
Yeah.
There was no camera in the kitchen. So, you know, it's her loose relationship with the truth has totally thrown the landlord under the bus, because I became absolutely insanely furious at him at that point, and outraged. But there was a camera over Holly's door that was next to the kitchen, that was also right next to an entry point for the house. So there was perhaps a legitimate reason for it to be there. You can see who's coming and going from the back door. Holly may have redirected that camera. She didn't rip it down because it was still there when we were there. So, yeah, I don't know. How did I get on this topic?
We'll finish that.
Okay.
He was saying that a lot of people are angry about the cameras.
Oh yeah, so yeah, the cameras.
We feel you.
The cameras are quite serious. There were cameras in the studio, and Holly was concerned that he was spying on her, maybe to steal her music. Whatever, he was maybe interested in blackmailing her, because I don't know, and that still is a concern for me, that might be going on. But part of it is just bullshit that's been brought on by this woman who just spins these fairy stories out of nowhere, because there never were cameras in the kitchen. There were some cameras placed in strategic points in the hallways of the house to see who might be going to the studio, right? To where you could say that Michael has a legitimate interest because he's got equipment in the studio, right? And he has, you know, he wants to know who's coming and going in the house, whether it's the tenants or whatnot. I don't know. Or you could say he's a fucking paranoid asshole. You know, I don't know. I think a lot of people have thought that too, but including Holly.
Okay. Linda Richardson asked, was she on any medication for mental health at all during this time?
She was not. She was, I think, self-medicating with marijuana for anxiety that she experienced sometimes.
And sleeping. So we,
And sleeping.
the amount of marijuana that she did order online, it equaled out to about half a joint a day. So that it's not my jam, but I understand that's really not a significant amount overall. But it seemed to be, it was a strain that would help her sleep, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't sound like much at all to me. I'm not a user either, but so I'm not familiar, but I don't think that would be any concern.
Anybody in the States really is a user, except in maybe Colorado and California, right?
Yeah. So Dana Houston asks, can you comment on the roommate Avery? What I had mentioned earlier seems suspicious. I mean, I know you guys have talked about the roommates a bit already.
Apart from Avery being Tina's boyfriend, Avery is suspicious as fuck. You know, honestly, I just don't know. I just don't know. His behavior, in addition to Tina's like bus throwing under shit, is suspicious as fuck. Like, but you know, these people are just fucking weird, and it may be that it's nothing at all, and they're just weird, or it might be really something horrible, and we don't know.
We don't know.
So, and I just say that Avery's really suspicious because he was the manager of a set of art studios near where Holly lived, called the Cotton Factory. And myself and my friends were walking around and trying to find possible routes Holly may have taken, possible places she may have gone. And just early on, we're trying to figure out where she might have, would she have walked somewhere and stayed somewhere. And the Cotton Factory seemed like a likely location. And we got there, and my friend Tyler, he goes off in one direction, I go off in the other. He finds this office where they manage the place, and finds a number for this guy who manages the place, Avery. Calls him up a couple of times, says we want to talk to people who might have seen her, Holly, coming and going, you know. Well, Avery was there in the house the day Holly went missing. He was the one who stayed behind in the house to make sure that if she came back, they would know. You know, so he knew quite well who Holly was. Anyway, he pretended to Tyler that he had no idea what was going on, made it very hard to schedule an interview. And it was a long time till we found out that Avery was the same Avery who was her roommate. So yes, he's highly suspicious because of his behavior in that case. And apart from that, I have no reason to be suspicious of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that whole scenario creeped me out and made me very suspicious. And I don't have any, you know, apart from that, I don't have any reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, like we had mentioned earlier, there was a lot of blocks that kind of came up as we were going, and that happens to be one of them. And whether it was a matter of awkwardness or not knowing what to do in a situation, or whether it was something nefarious, we're not sure.
That's really weird. I can't get my head around why somebody would pretend to somebody investigating that case that they weren't her roommate. It's really bizarre. Yeah.
I agree.
Not to mention the fact that he's a 50 to 60-year-old, you know, anyway. Yeah.
What was that? I think I saw another question there a moment ago, Jason.
Sorry.
Didn't he own the building and lie about it when he called for footage, Dana said?
No. The roommate is a gentleman named Michael, different guy.
The landlord is a Michael.
Landlord.
She said roommate.
Sorry.
Avery's the roommate. This is like the first time, I think one of the first times I've gotten a chance to correct Elle.
Whoa.
Every dog has his day, Dave.
This is like, he deserves an ice cream or some shit. Like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
1 point.
So win. Put that in a win column.
You've already answered this, but Dawn, I'm sorry if I pronounce your last name, Dawn. 10th each. Sorry, Dawn. Not intentional. Have the police helped at all anymore? Or was it in the beginning? I know you answered that they've been pretty good. Have they been good throughout the duration, not just the beginning? I guess she's asking.
Well, less at the beginning, actually. Not so much at the beginning.
Okay.
Not so much in the early, middle, but then
It took
after
about
that,
2 years.
they've been very helpful, and we really do appreciate all that they've done.
I'm not joking. We will get a tip, and if it's something that would put our team on the ground in danger, or if it's something that involves footage that we can't get, we will send it to HPD, and they happily go out and they search. They are still fielding tips. We are still fielding tips. They're great. We've got no current complaints about Hamilton Police at all.
Okay, good. Well, that's good. I don't hear that a lot, actually, so I'm glad someone's getting some help that they're satisfied with.
Yeah. I would say, just to add to anybody that you are taking cases on or talking about, one of the things that we implemented was we assigned roles to people. So, for example, you see Dave and I everywhere. We're the faces. We took that role on. But we've got another girl that liaises with the police. And that has been absolutely super valuable, because without one person doing that role, you end up with police providing information to a myriad of people and thinking that you're going to get the information across. So I would provide that piece of advice to anybody that is in a similar horrible situation like this. Choose one person. Make that your person and have that your person that deals with the police. Make it someone trusted and have that person liaise, and you will reap the rewards from that.
Good advice, for sure. Dawn, let's say Dawn. Sorry, Dawn. I don't know why I'm having such trouble with that name. Says, have you looked into a PI, private investigator?
We did.
Yeah, we've had at least one PI helping us on this case.
Yeah. The good and bad is that because we have all of her online presence, there's not a ton that private investigators have been able to do above and beyond what the entire Corps has done.
And in addition to that, by the time we really started to look into PIs, the whole COVID thing was
COVID was real at that point.
Yeah. Making it hard for anybody to move. So
yeah.
Okay. So we have a question. I'm thinking I might know what Dave's reaction will be to this, but she says, any info from psychics or mediums? Do you guys have any feelings on those either way?
So we have had 47 psychics, mediums, remote viewers, tarot readers, you name it, 47 of them approach us and talk to us. And unfortunately, none of those have provided information to bring home yet.
No.
Okay. And nothing that seems promising from them that came up? And
I will be very, very honest about it. It is 50-50. 50% of them think she's dead and 50% of them think she's alive. I'm a total nerd, so I've been keeping a spreadsheet of what psychics say, and if there's a common thread that maybe I'm missing, I'm not trying to discount anybody, so I'm trying to find a common medium in between. Unfortunately, there isn't one, but they are sitting at 50% alive and 50% that she's passed on.
Okay. So I always do. I know, Dave, that you wanted to step off camera when it came to the voicemail, so I want to give you a little bit of a warning here before I say what I'm about to say, because it tends to be the part of the interview where someone might get a little emotional, so just to give you a little preparation. But I always try to include a part at the end where if she happens to be watching this, that you can speak directly to her and get a message to her.
Yeah. Holly, we love you, and it's just super hard not knowing what's going on with you. We just want some information from you that you're doing okay. That's all. And if you're not doing okay, we want to be able to help you in any way that you see fit. So please get some kind of information to us so we know it's you. And because we've had how many extortion attempts though?
3.
No, I think it's more than that. At least 4. At least 4 extortion, 4 real extortion attempts. So
Yeah.
we'd like to hear from you.
I would also like to add, we know that you've got your debit card and credit card with you. Mike from Royal Bank changed your credit card number, your PIN number. There's enough money in your bank account to get you anywhere you want to go. The new PIN code is 2580. Again, it's 2580. And Dave and Greta have put enough money in there to cover you. So take advantage of it. And if you need assistance at all, Dave is happy to hop a flight. I'm happy to hop a flight. You just let us know. Call Dave, call Greta, call anybody. We're happy to help you and make sure that you're okay.
All right, awesome. And you guys are both doing an excellent job representing Holly. I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
Very well. Tammy Spang asked, have they been used? I think she's referring to the card. They've been used yet, right?
No, they haven't, unfortunately.
Okay. We got a lot of people just kind of wishing you well and things like that. Of course, giving you their support. And guys, we once this uploads, it might take an hour or so to process, but I will put all the links down there to the groups and everything and their personal contact information. So please stay in touch, keep up on the case. If you know anything, even if it's the tiniest thing that you think, this is probably nothing, these cases are always solved by 500 tiny little pieces coming together. So it's really important to, if you know anything, even if you assume they already know it, they might not know it, or they might not know the angle on it that you have, or whatever. So please come forward. And again, I will put the links below. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But what I wanted to ask is there anything that I didn't think to cover that's important you want to make sure gets out there regarding whether it be the day she disappeared, anything that's happened afterwards, just something about her in general?
We are coming on to 8 months of Holly being missing, so she could be anywhere. If you're located in Vancouver, Canada, Newfoundland, Canada, Boston, please don't think that your location makes a difference. She could literally be anywhere. We're not solely focused on Hamilton. We are focused there because that's the last known steps we have. But if you are, regardless of where you're at, please keep your eyes open for her. She's very hard to miss at 6 feet tall. She might have lost weight. She might have cut her hair, dyed it. But the reality is she can't change her height. So please keep your eyes open for her.
And if you do decide to watch any of the video, the video of her walking.
Oh, I'll play that right now. Sorry.
Gait is very distinctive. So she doesn't always walk this particular way, but there's something about her stride that I can identify pretty easily.
Very quickly. Yeah, very, very quickly. So that's the other thing. If you do see somebody that you think is Holly, if you can take a picture, that helps me very, very quickly. A video. It helps me rule it out within seconds. I know that might sound a bit quick.
Ruling it out is really important too.
There she goes. So somebody had asked in the comments earlier what was in the garbage bag. So if you are able to replay that, you'll see that she's walking with a garbage bag over her body and one over her shoulder. We have no idea. She picked that garbage bag up along her walk and then she dropped it in a similar area.
She's about Is it 20 minutes or 30 minutes into this walk at this point?
This is at 4:52. So
She's about 20 minutes into this walk.
Mhm.
Where in the loop is she? How long has she been carrying this garbage bag?
So she picked this up at 4:30, and she's still carrying it here, but then she loses it at 4:58 p.m.
So she's been carrying it for what, 25
About
minutes?
20 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, and then she carries it in a big loop back to here,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's gone.
It's gone. She doesn't. So somebody had said, well, maybe this is a go bag. Maybe this is something she had packed before. Maybe this is all planned. She leaves the bag. The bag does not go with her. It does not carry on forward with her.
Within 2 minutes after this, the bag is gone.
Gone.
Within 2 minutes. Oh, wow. Okay.
And the next question is going to be, did we look for the bag? Yes, we looked for it. But again, we didn't get this footage until 3 weeks later.
There are a lot of garbage bags.
A lot of them.
And also, there's a lot of garbage that's not in garbage bags.
Yeah.
Dana Houston asks, did cameras from days prior maybe show her stash something? Maybe it was planned for her to pick it up. Did someone else drop it there for her?
That's such a great question, and we have no idea because
we have no
we
footage
didn't get
from the
any of
house because the landlord refused to provide it. So if she had taken something out of the home, if she'd taken clothes or a backpack or something, we don't know. He refused to provide it.
Oh, somebody's saying her music is amazing, and thank you. I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to let you know that I leaked that video.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm trying to get some attention from people who might be able to share it. But the sort of the properly remixed album from that video and maybe one other song is going to be coming out as soon as that mixing is done, and as soon as we can go through all the business of sharing it. We're going to get it onto Spotify and all those sites. It's going to be close to the end of September, and we'll have an actual album release date as soon as possible. We can't say yet because we don't have the actual mixed stuff in our hands right now. One of Holly's, sorry.
If you need a moment, Dave, by all means, take a step
One of
up.
Holly's close friends is mixing the album, and he's from Russia. He moved here with his parents when he was a kid, and he was here and watched Holly's tape, and he told us at the time that Holly was his first friend from Canada. Jesus Christ! Sorry, the oddest things make me cry. And anyway, yeah. So he's a sound engineer and a musician, and he's trying his best to get this thing remastered for the end of August, which is coming up quickly. So he's probably working his ass off in his studio right now, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And if you guys want me to, just to get more people seeing it, especially now that people on my channel know about her, I can put some of her stuff on this channel too, just to get more exposure to it.
That would be great. I'd love to send you a link once we get that going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, people have complained, I guess, legitimately about the sound on the audio on the video that we have, and I'm just saying that right now it's being remastered. He has all of the different tracks, and he's able to maybe bring the guitar down at times and the voice up and whatnot. So
our goal with
best with that.
Our goal with this is to make her voice known, so her face becomes known.
Right.
Yeah.
So that we can get her out there a little bit more. All we really want is Holly home.
Yeah.
So Dave has joined Twitter, which is a big deal. And he's got a few things out there. We're hoping to get some artists, some actors to retweet this information so that we can get her face out there a little bit more. So if you're a Twitter person, his is Dave Clark YYC, and he's got a couple posts there that you can share out to any artists that might be willing to retweet or share her information. Again, it's for facial recognition so that we can bring her home.
And someone's asking about her music. It is on YouTube now, correct?
It is on YouTube now, and she has a YouTube site, but there's another YouTube site where, so most of her stuff is not very well recorded. She was very prolific, but she was a real noob when it came to the studio. So she has one track that she recorded with her then band, Raspberry Jam, she recorded it for the CBC contest, so that's out there somewhere. You can probably find it. That's called Fake Romance. You look up Holly Clark Fake Romance, you'll probably find that. And she has there's another session that she's done with her band that she formed in Toronto. The band was called Deep Bite, and there's a session there's a live session that was shot at Crystal Beach, and it's called, if you look up Holly Clark Deep Bite, you'll probably find it. I think that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
So you can find it there, and that was actually recorded well.
Yeah.
She has an album on what's the name of the site? The Bandcamp. She's got an album on Bandcamp now that has been remastered to the best it can be, and we'll be doing some. She has a bunch of other recordings as well that are sort of that level that we'll also be getting out, just so people can enjoy them if they want to. But please enjoy that video. It's right now the best recorded that we have, and it's being remastered for release on all of the platforms. So
definitely. And like I said, once it's done, we'll put it here as well, just to get more eyes on it. Because like you say, the more people that know her voice, then they know her face, they're into the case, and the more chance you have of bringing her home. We have a question from Be United Missing Persons. Check out that group, by the way, guys. I'll put the links below, b-united.org, but in their Facebook group. But they asked, does Canada have a way to check arrests or court cases? If so, does the landlord have prior charges of any relevance or illegal evictions?
Essentially no. Just a basic Google search is all that you can get in Canada without actually doing a FOIP request. And the FOIP request would actually have to go through each individual area.
And FOIP means Freedom of Information and Privacy.
So
they seem to be more concerned about privacy though than freedom of information.
Yeah. So you would have to go to every courthouse and request individually. I've not found anything nefarious about the guy, legally speaking. So.
Okay.
She could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone put a link to Crystal Beach. Is that one of her songs?
Sounds of course she did. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah.
That's
That's Sarah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, my girl.
The Crystal Beach recording, that's where they recorded it. Crystal Beach is located on Lake Erie, close to Niagara.
Okay, awesome. Be United also says, wondering if the landlord made her leave and didn't want that video out there. Not familiar with the laws there. She's in America, U.S. But wondered if he had priors, things to consider to get police more serious with her missing.
So he was not in the country at the time of her disappearance. And he communicated with her through email and WhatsApp almost exclusively, and there was no reference like that made at all. In fact, he and Holly had made a deal that she would do some work around the house, and in return he would cut her rent a little bit. Things like make a garden and be responsible for the studio and recording it there. So
she was even like selling some of his stuff on Kijiji.
Yeah.
She was shipping some of his stuff to Jamaica for him.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
She seemed to have a good relationship with him, apart from being suspicious of his reasons for having the video.
Okay. Anna L says, I have put out feelers locally. I have contacts who can get around confidentially in shelters here.
My girl, do it. Hit me up through DMs on Facebook or Insta or Twitter. I don't care if you have someone that can confirm whether Holly's there. Hit me up. Absolutely.
And Dana Houston asks, why wasn't it looked at as a criminal case right away? And also, aren't the police supposed to make sure they physically see someone when they do a wellness check, not just take someone's word? I think she's referring to the hotel and how you said they didn't open the.
No, they're referring to the day before she left. Her brother came to see her. First of all, her sister came to see her in the morning. And then she was quite concerned about Holly, and we asked her brother to visit her. Yeah. He was in Chicago then, and he was flying into Toronto where he lived. Mm-hmm. He flew into Toronto, took a bus to Hamilton, and expecting Holly to pick him up. She didn't. He walked from the bus station to her place. He tried to get in for hours, and then He left and called us, and we said, go back. He went back and he called the police, asked the police to go in. And then they asked him the question, do you think she's a danger to herself or others? And he said no. And so based on that,
well, they asked her through the door as well.
They asked her through the door as well. And she said, I'm fine, or something to that extent. And so they didn't go in.
Okay. A lot of support. Be United asks, who managed the apartment if he was gone frequently?
So Holly had taken over that role, but prior to that, it was Avery's girlfriend, Tina, the girl that we've spoken about a couple times here.
Okay. She did that. Okay. Is there anything additional? I think I asked that already. Sorry, but anything we didn't think to get? I just want to make sure we're as thorough as possible, of course.
Sorry. Holly's cat has decided to show up here and now very loudly at you all. I think we've covered the majority of it. Again, we've done a ton of Facebook Lives on the search group that goes through all of these details and more. We answer as many questions as possible. We actually did a Facebook Live where we walked the route that Holly took when she disappeared. So if you do have further questions, I would strongly suggest watching those to get caught up to speed.
But if you have additional questions, there may be something that we haven't considered. We like to think that we've considered everything, but we'd also really like to find out that thing that we haven't considered.
Yeah.
Because that could be the key, and we just haven't thought of it yet. So if you do have a question, please do send it along by one of the channels that we have available.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And I'm going to give the Hamilton police number here and the file number, but when I put the information down there, I will of course put Holly's group. Do you also want either of your or both of your private Facebooks on there for contact, or no, just the group?
Just the group's fine. You can find me on there. Dave doesn't do Facebook, so you'll find me as an admin on the group. So definitely DM me through there anytime. You're welcome to put my profile up for direct messages as well.
Okay. And did you say you wanted to give a phone number earlier?
Yeah, so we can provide 2 phone numbers. We've got a phone number to reach the search team. So if you've got a picture or video, or you've got a something that you need to call in, you can reach one of us 24/7. And then there's a family number that we can provide, an email address, DMs, Twitter, Instagram. There's an Insta account there. You name it. We've got multiple ways to get a hold of us. So I'll send you a link with everything.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, I'll put it all under there.
You bet.
Okay, so I think we will end it there. If there isn't anything else that you guys could think that I didn't forget.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
and thanks to everybody who's watching. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I think you can see the chat as well, but a lot more is being said than what I'm displaying. I'm the one choosing to put it on the screen like that, but you have a ton of support, and I'm mostly just putting the questions up there, but you have tons of people saying all kinds of things throughout the hour and a half. So
Awesome. Thank you very much for engaging and asking all the questions that you have. We do appreciate it. We appreciate your time, and any efforts you can make to help us find our girl.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Anna says she just contacted you regarding the shelter contact, so maybe check.
I see it on my phone.
All right, guys, have a great night. Let's bring Holly home.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
and thank you to the chat. Have a great night, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.